So after a wait that feels like forever, the Switch 2 is finally here. I finally have it in hand, and I am very excited to do this impressions video about it. And today we're just going to do a quick impressions video talking about what my experience has been like so far with the system, just over about the past week or so. I figure I'll do a full review later on, so this is just kind of a high-level look at what my experience with the Switch 2 has been like so far. So to that end, today what I'm going to talk about was the launch experience, because I did end up going to the midnight launch with some friends, and we had a great time doing it. Then secondarily, I'll talk about my experience playing with the system so far, and just some of the weird things that I've noticed about it. And then finally, I'll just do a deeper dive into all of the things that I actually picked up, including the physical games and accessories that I bought during the launch. But for starters, I really did want to kick this off talking about the midnight launch for the Switch 2. Midnight launches are kind of a thing of the past at this point. It's not that they never happen, it's just that when they do, it doesn't quite have the same gravitas as it did a couple generations back, when you would have just massive lines of people queuing up for whatever the latest game was. Halo 2 in particular was an incredible midnight launch that I remember fondly, and I have to say the Switch 2 launch kind of conjured up some of that old nostalgia for me. Now, I'd already mentioned that I pre-ordered some Switch 2s online, and one of them got canceled, one of them went to my mom, one of them went to my buddy Ryan, and then the one that I actually pre-ordered was from GameStop directly, and that's where we spent the midnight launch. And I have to hand it to GameStop, they really did go all out this time. In addition to doing like trivia and a cosplay contest where people would come dressed up as various Nintendo characters, they also had food trucks, and they were handing out free Red Bull, which for me, as a just diehard caffeine addict, was pretty great. But more than just whatever amenities GameStop decided they were going to offer people, I gotta say, I just had a really good time there. And I was shocked at the number of people that turned out. I kind of figured we'd get, anywhere from about 100 to 120 people, but I want to say that we were closer to 200 people, because the line from my GameStop stretched all the way down the strip mall that it is in, and that line just went on forever. And I think the reason for that is people did get wind that there were a fair amount of consoles that were available for non-pre-orders as well. One of my friends actually did not pre-order the system and was in from out of town, and he was able to scoop one up at the midnight launch. So all in all, I have to say, Nintendo was really well prepared for this launch and had tons of units ready to go, and that seemed to be the case for most other retailers as well. I saw a lot of people online talking about Best Buy having extra units, Walmart having extra units, and so forth. So yeah, even if you didn't pre-order a Switch 2, there was a good chance that you're able to get your hands on one, and probably do so without having to indulge in the online scalpers. And to kind of bolster that launch excitement for me even further, a few days later it was my birthday, and I had a bunch of friends and family over, and a lot of these people had Switch 2s, so we basically just set up a Mario Kart World LAN party and had like 10 people playing at once doing like knockout tour, and it was crazy good fun. Not technically a true LAN party, because as it turns out, if you want to enter LAN mode for Mario Kart World, you do actually have to have a wired connection after we tried to set that up, but we just decided to use the online functionality and just, go ahead and do some of the knockout tour races, and it was an absolute blast, having everybody in the same room and hearing everybody flip out when someone got hit by a lightning bolt, or when a blue shell was like imminently inbound, and hearing somebody just freak out was just a lot of fun, and it really did bring back a lot of the nostalgia that I had for old LAN parties. So yeah, suffice it to say, I think the Nintendo Switch 2 had a tremendous launch, and I think they've already moved like 3.5 million units, they've said. Now, I don't know if that means directly sold to consumers or if they've just sent those to retailers. They could be like playing with the numbers there a little bit, but from everything I've seen, it's been a tremendous success for Nintendo so far. And honestly, I am not at all surprised by that, because now we should talk about the system itself rather than just the launch surrounding it. And I have to say, this thing has been amazing so far. And I think the best way that I could really explain it is it really does feel like what everybody thought a Switch Pro might look like when people were kind of thinking about, a mid-generational refresh for the original Switch. Everything about it, from the build quality to the vibrance of the display to the overall comfort of just having a larger Switch in general, makes this thing feel absolutely premium. Even the kickstand, which I was worried would be a little bit flimsy based on what I'd seen from the early videos, is actually incredibly high quality. It holds its position very well, and while it's a little bit harder for you to go ahead and pop it out than what you would do on the Switch OLED, ultimately it does seem like an improvement. And yes, the magnetic Joy-Cons work incredibly well, and it is super satisfying when this thing snaps into place. Although I will say, be careful, I did pinch my fingers once or twice doing that when I wasn't really paying attention, as I was just kind of testing it out. You can absolutely pinch your fingers with this thing, and it does not feel good, because those magnets are super strong. And something else I really like about it that you can't really tell from the videos is it does have sort of a matte finish to the plastic on the outside of it. It almost feels like it has like a slight rubber coating almost, but not quite. It's kind of hard to explain, but it feels really good in hand. And when it comes to the speed and performance of the Switch 2, you are going to notice that snappiness immediately. And one of the biggest problems that I had with the original Switch, that I actually talked about in that Switch Lite versus Steam Deck video from a while back, was just how slow and sluggish the eShop is, which is just a terrible situation to be in for Nintendo, because if the process by which I buy things from you is cumbersome and annoying to navigate, then I'm not going to buy as much stuff from you. But that has not been the problem with the Switch 2, because the eShop is now super fast and super good to navigate, and I would argue in some ways almost too fast, because because whenever you hover over an icon for a game that you're curious about learning more about, it instantly starts playing a video. And I mean, maybe it'll take like a second or two before it starts, but in a lot of cases, before I even get a chance to really recognize what video game artwork I'm looking at in the thumbnail, that video just starts playing and I have to like actually move away from it and then move back. And honestly, that's a problem I'm perfectly happy with. That's a tiny nitpick on my part, because I would rather this thing be super fast and force me to kind of like drop off of a particular title that I'm looking at and then go back onto it than have it be super slow and borderline unusable. And similarly too, I would say on the gameplay front, everything is also really snappy. Games seem to load really quickly, although I will say that it does seem they load a lot more quickly when you have them directly installed to the SSD in the Switch, and I think the SD card feels a little bit quicker than if you're playing a game directly off of the cartridge, which, to be fair, I really only have one or two games that I can really speak to that, since most of the games that I picked up are game key cards, but nonetheless, I wouldn't say that any of the games that I've launched and played have felt slow to load or anything like that, just that it does seem that there is a difference in speed depending on where you have your game installed. And while I would say so far I've spent most of my time playing in dock mode with the Switch 2, whenever I have had occasion to play it in portable mode, or like when I was filming B-roll for this video, the screen is tasty good. Now, I won't say it's completely indistinguishable from an OLED, like, technically speaking, if you look really closely at the screen, especially for any gameplay that's displaying like deep blacks, you're going to notice that it's more of a super dark gray than a true black, but when it comes to literally any other color that's displayed on screen, it is so incredibly vibrant that if you held these up side by side and I didn't know any better, I'm not positive I'd be able to tell the difference between the OLED and the panel that we have on the Switch 2. And that increase in screen real estate may look minuscule when you look at kind of comparison shots online, but once you have it in hand, it is significantly larger than the original Switch, the OLED, and of course the Switch Lite. So yeah, all of that is to say that I'm absolutely loving the portable experience, I'm loving the docked experience, but I'll have to speak to that more in depth whenever I actually do the full review on this, probably in about a week or two, I would say, after I've really had time to put the system through its paces. So again, my initial impressions are largely positive. There are a few nitpicks that I have about the system that I've been slowly writing down as I come across them, but I also want to wait, since some of those are software-based, to see if Nintendo releases any patches that might address some of the things that I'm concerned about, so we'll just have to wait and see. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about some of the games that I picked up at launch. I'm going to go ahead and go through the physical games that I got, the digital games, and then also the accessories that I picked up for the Switch 2. And when it comes to physical games, one of the first ones that I grabbed, which I wasn't necessarily going to, but the fact that they had a pre-order bonus where you got kind of Mario and Luigi outfits, or at least cosmetics to go along with this game, kind of sold me on it. Plus, I've always heard this game is amazing, and I like the idea of having the entire collection, well, sort of, there's a ton of add-on content for this game, but you know what I mean, kind of swayed me to purchase it, and that would be Hitman World of Assassination right here. Also, I do like they even had like a little sticker here showing you like, oh yeah, you do get some bonus content that is distinctly Nintendo themed, which I thought was really interesting. Now, I'm a big fan of stealth action games, however, I have not spent a significant amount of time with any Hitman game since like the PlayStation 2 era. I have friends who rave about this game and talk about how wonderful the level design is, and I'm hoping to finally find out for myself and truly put this game through its paces on the Switch 2. And next up, in stark contrast to something as dark and foreboding as a game where you play as an assassin, is something that's a little bit lighter that I just decided I would go ahead and try out since I hadn't played this game, even though it was technically available on other platforms, and that would be Sonic X Shadow Generations here. And the thing about this game, first off, I want to give kudos to Sega, because even though this is a game key card, I like that they did include kind of like a physical journal here, which I haven't really looked through yet, because I'm worried there's going to be spoilers in it. And also, you can kind of see here, they did a reversible cover for this one, which I appreciated. So if you wanted to have like a alternate cover art for this, you can definitely do that. And the thing is, I'm not like the biggest Sonic aficionado or anything. There are certain Sonic games that I've played through the years, like Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast when that system launched. And really the whole reason I bought this was because, you know, we really didn't get a true Mario game out of the gate. I mean, Mario Kart World notwithstanding, I guess. And I did like the idea of just having a fun, lighthearted, colorful adventure that I could check out on the system at launch, and that seemed like the perfect game to accomplish just that. I will say I find the level structure to be a little bit confusing. It seems like you can play some of those original levels as kind of classic Sonic, and then you do Act 2 of that same level as modern Sonic, which is a lot more 3D and a lot more difficult to control, I would say, but nonetheless, it is super fast, it communicates that speed very well, and I will say so far what I've tested on the Switch 2, it really does hold up great on that portable screen, and I have not noticed any significant hiccups, which is great because, well, Sonic is known for speed after all. Next up, also from the world of Sega, I did go ahead and pick up Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. I have not opened this yet, and it does sort of of pained me that I, started playing this game on the Steam Deck. I'm about 10 to 15 hours in. There is no cross-save option for this. There's no cross-progression, so it's not like I can pick up all my Yakuza, progress over there and bring it over to the Switch 2. But I also don't mind restarting it from the beginning just to see how it plays on this, because honestly, it's been so long since I got back to Yakuza 0 that I've forgotten a lot of it, which, as somebody who is constantly covering different games here on the channel, I hop around a lot, so every now and then that just sort of comes with the territory, right? Sometimes if it's a narrative-based game, you just have to restart and kind of pick everything back up. And next up is a game that I also already own on another platform, specifically the 3DS. I kind of mentioned in the video leading up to the Switch 2's launch that I was going to target this game as one of the 2 physical games that I would pick up before I ended up with 5 somehow, but that would be Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster. And here's the thing, I played it on the 3DS, never beat it. I figure I might as well pick it up and try it again here, but I have not opened it yet, only because I figure, this next game that I'm going to show you is the one that's going to take the lion's share of my time out of the gate, because it is not just a wonderful game in its own right, but a brilliant technical showcase for what the Switch 2 can do, and so far, Switch 2 has been handling this game perfectly, and that has been Cyberpunk 2077, the Ultimate Edition here that has the Phantom Liberty expansion, and I have to say, this thing has just been tremendous so far. The only thing was, it took me a minute to get, oh wait, actually, real quick before I move on, I do want to say that, like Sega, they also included some physical goodies here. Comes with some stickers that you can kind of see. And the thing that really excites me about this one is it does support cross-progression, so my 60-hour save that I had from beating this on the Series X can be brought over here, and I can finally check out the Phantom Liberty expansion, which I have not played any of so far. However, before I do jump into the Phantom Liberty expansion, I did want to spend some time kind of running around on refamiliarizing myself with Cyberpunk 2077. It's been a couple of years since I've really spent any significant time with that game, since I tested it once on the Steam Deck and brought my save over to there. So at this point, I believe all of my perks have been reset, so I'm running around pretty vanilla at the moment, and I'm probably going to have to look up some builds to make sure I don't, just make a terrible version of my V to run around and, ultimately contend with the Phantom Liberty expansion. But yeah, long story short, very excited to dive back into Night City. Now, when it comes to digital games, obviously I got Mario Kart World. I already kind of mentioned that a little bit. Super fun. If you like Mario Kart before, you're going to love it here. It is a lot more nuanced, I would say, than Mario Kart 8, and I am still struggling to really get the hang of, wall riding in this game. But hey, practice makes perfect, right? And I'm definitely going to be spending a ton of time with this. I have a lot of friends who are hitting me up saying, hey, do you want to play online? And I just can't wait to, hone my skills, as it were, and unlock even more characters. I think I've probably unlocked 10 or 15 so far. I finished all of the different circuits that you can do for Grand Prix, although I did not get gold on every one of them yet, so hey, room for improvement, right? But beyond Mario Kart World, the other racing game that I got that you should absolutely not sleep on, because I've been having a great time with it, is Fast Fusion. Now, I'll be honest, when Fast RMX came out for the original Switch, I played it a little bit, and I was like, yeah, it's okay, but I didn't like a lot of the track designs in that game, because I felt like there were a lot where they were just pillars, and I felt like visibility was questionable on some of the long stretches and curves, and honestly, I just found it to be pretty frustrating. But that is not a problem that has plagued Fast Fusion in any capacity, and I have to say, in terms of a game you'd want to show off the Switch 2's capabilities, Fast Fusion is an absolute stunner visually, and they released a day one patch for this that provides for 4K 60 FPS in quality mode, and it really does just look incredible. And finally, the last digital game that I got is really more of an experience than an actual game, and that would be the Switch 2 Welcome Tour. And I have to say, it does kind of bug me that it was $10 and not just packed in with the system, given that, it is very much kind of like an FAQ or a walkthrough for the system itself, but it does have a lot of interesting things in it, and I've really enjoyed reading up on the design choices that went into the Switch 2, specifically things like how they made sure that every point on the right or left bumpers would be accessible in mouse mode or in handheld mode, and the technology that kind of drove these decisions and why they made the changes they did when it came to the Switch's successor. All I can say about it so far, because I haven't quite finished the entire thing, is that I've definitely spent more money on worse games, so if you're curious about the Switch 2, or you're somebody who's just really interested in design, or someone who would just have zero reservation about spending your afternoon at a museum, yeah, it's definitely worth a look. Now, on the accessories front, I'm working through testing a range of just cases and other kind of supplementary things for the Switch 2, but I will say at launch, I did grab the Switch 2 Pro controller and also the camera and also an SD card. Now, when it comes to the camera, I wouldn't say it's anything particularly special. However, what I will say is that the way Nintendo utilizes this camera is very special, and I'll talk more about that in the full review. When it comes to the Pro controller, it feels silky smooth at all times. The analog sticks are weirdly soft whenever you actually move them to the perimeter of, just the full range of analog stick motion on this. It doesn't feel grindy or plasticky when you get to the edge when you're pushing the stick. It just feels butter smooth. It's really hard to describe, but it has to be one of the best analog sticks that I've ever used, bar none. And also, I will say, as a friend pointed out to me that I didn't notice at first, is they do feel somehow snappier than the original. They seem to snap back to that center position really, really quickly. So I'm not sure if they kind of modified how much tension was on the sticks or how they went about doing that, but yeah, it definitely feels snappier and smoother overall. And when it comes to the SD card, there's really not a lot to say about it. It's a 256 gig card. I kind of figured that much like with the Steam Deck coverage, I would likely be going through a lot of different Switch 2 games as time goes on here on the channel, so having the extra space was kind of a no-brainer for me, although I may upgrade to a 512 or a 1 terabyte later on when those come down in price a little bit, because yeah, these are still pretty expensive for the amount of space that you get, but I guess you need that extra speed for all the horsepower the Switch 2 has. But yeah, bottom line, I do not regret my decision to pick up the Switch 2 at all so far. It's not a perfect system, but again, we'll dive into that more in a full-blown review. But hey, what about you? Did you grab the Switch 2 at launch, and if so, what was your experience like? Did you have a blast going to a midnight launch somewhere, or after you got the system, what were some of the first games you fired up? I would love to hear about it in the comments below. As far as what's coming up on the channel, I will be doing a video that expands on some of the games that I bought through the eShop. Since the eShop is so much faster, I've been compelled to buy some more digital games there, because the Steam Deck really did warm me up to digital gaming in a significant way, and since the eShop runs so much better, I did pick up some other games for the Switch 2, but I'm going to be doing some testing for that, and I'll probably put out that video sometime this weekend, I would say. And again, a full-blown review of the Switch 2 will be coming later on, after I've had a chance to do a deeper dive into all of its features. But that's going to be it for this one. As always, thank you so much for your time and watching videos here on the channel. I really, really appreciate it. Have a tremendous day, and I will see you on the next one.